The election is a referendum on Joe Biden's policies and the failures that we've seen, and we are presenting a positive vision for the future. We will win the presidency, and we will have a chance to turn the country around. If, on the other hand, the election is not about January 20th, 2025, but January 6th, 2021, or what document was left by the toilet at Mar-a-Lago, if it's a referendum on that, we are going to lose.
Some words there from Florida Governor Ron DeSantis in his first network interview since launching his presidential campaign.
Yeah, the presidential hopeful trailing behind former President Donald Trump in the polls, saying the 2024 campaign should focus on President Biden, not Trump. Former Pennsylvania Senator Rick Santorum and Jessie Jane Duff is an ambassador for the American First Policy Institute. They both join us live now. Senator, wanted to talk to you about that and just really campaigning against Donald Trump and how difficult that is. He's constantly in the headlines for whichever reason. But the words from DeSantis there saying Republicans in all, if it's about January 6th, the election, classified documents, Republicans will lose. Is there a hard truth in that?
I think it is. I mean, I think that's sort of true for any campaign. You want to make the campaign about your opponent, not about you. Voters, for better or for worse, tend to vote against candidates as much more than they vote for a candidate. And if you have your opponent on the defensive and they're the subject matter and their record is the issue, you're much more likely to be successful. And it's one of the reasons that that this race is the race, if it comes down to Trump and Biden, is such a fascinating race that I'm sure the media loves. All media loves it because it's about two folks who have very, very high negatives, both of which are underwater. I mean, both their unfavorables are much, much higher than their favorables. So it's a test of who can make the race about the other. And so DeSantis's point that if you can take one of those out, if Trump is not the candidate, that leaves Biden as the unfavorable, and the Democrats are the same way around, which is, I think, one of the reasons you're seeing some movement to try to move Biden is they'd like to get Biden out of the picture, many would, and try to make Trump the central focus.
Could you imagine 24 the same thing as 2020? You've got the ultimate rematch here. I mean, to your point, Senator, media would love to see it, but would the American public love to see it? That's something we would have to wait and see. But speaking of contenders, GOP presidential candidate Senator Tim Scott also wants to be considered by voters here. He says he would finish the border wall if elected president. So he went on to blame the current White House here, blaming President Biden for illegal crossings and deaths from fentanyl being trafficked. But also in a televised interview, he said he would be the president that finishes the border wall. Jessie Jane, what's your read on that? Is that a slight dig at Donald Trump?
No, it's not a slight on Donald Trump, because I think every Republican knows that he was well on his way to finishing the wall, but had been suppressed by multiple court challenges that the Democrats had placed forward that suppressed that wall getting built immediately and as quickly as it should have been built. But I would just say, thank you for stating the obvious, Senator Scott. I mean, this is something that everybody understands and knows that Donald Trump has already won his cases in court to proceed with the wall. And we see great demonstration by the current administration to block and stop anything that was implemented by Donald Trump since getting into the White House. And that's why we have this massive surge. And to Ron DeSantis's point about it shouldn't be about January 6th, duh. We already know that as voters, and the referendum on Joe Biden has been a full charge by the Trump campaign. They have discussed the failure of the Biden policies and how they've impacted America and its citizens. So I would just dare to say to everyone listening that Donald Trump is a front runner for a reason, because he had a proven record of being a fighter, and both candidates are only stating the obvious. So I find some of their arguments a little bit weak and lackluster. They're not putting them ahead with the Trump supporters that they both need in order to win.
We got to leave it right there. The latest Emerson poll here, the one that came out on Michigan, has Trump and Biden at an dead even tie, 44-44. So interesting there to point out. Jessie Jane Duff, Senator Rick Santorum, we appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.